Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bike Matters, and today we've got the brand new middleweight naked street bike from Triumph. It's the Trident 660. Now, this is a brand new bike, and Triumph are kind of aiming it as their entry-level naked, because obviously, you know, the street triple has been around for years now, and it's always been, you know, an absolute beast in its category, and they wanted something, you know, a little bit more user-friendly. And I won't say it's a beginner bike, more like it's a great bike that beginners will still feel comfortable on. I think anyone could ride this bike and have a thoroughly splendid time on it as well. Straight away, it's kind of the first triple in this category, because this is more like the budget end of the middleweight nakeds, right? So the price is £7,395. So, you know, it's kind of, its rival's going to be things like the Z650, the CB650R, and of course the MT-07. That's the kind of the end of the range that we're talking about. And I think for £7,000, this has got to be one of the most refined and polished bikes you'll find anywhere, without a doubt. Obviously, a ton of care and attention has been put into getting this bike exactly how Triumph want it. So the engine, it's a 660cc liquid-cooled inline 3-cylinder, and yet you might think it's a triple. It's the same engine as the street triple. No, it's not. It's a brand new engine. It actually comes from the old Daytona 675 engine, but just completely reworked, retuned. So it's its own beast, and it's somewhat unique. And the way that it rides is very unique as well. For starters, it puts out 80 brake horsepower, so decent amount of power. It has some firepower. 64 newton meters of torque, peaking at just over 6,000 RPM. But according to Triumph, it will sustain 90% of peak torque across the entire range, from like 3,000 to 9,000. So you do get plenty of constant pull all the way across. But one of the most striking things is the real power, where you really feel it kind of kick in. It does happen in the mid-ranges. Kind of the tendency for these middleweight bikes these days is to have like little hooligans, you know, instant power delivery, strong engine braking, and this one's a bit more laid, I guess laid back. You can definitely give it some and get some serious fun out of this bike for sure. But like I said, because of the way the power is delivered, it's just a little bit more manageable, and I think that's the key here, which is why, you know, Triumph is saying it is their entry level, and it is a bike that's going to be just fine for beginners, because it's very manageable, very user friendly, incredibly easy to ride. And there's a couple of other things they've done there to help with new riders as well, but we'll get into that later. But don't let that put you off. If you're a more experienced rider, this is the cheapest way to own a Triumph currently in 2021. So there is plenty of fun to be had for experienced riders too, because this bike goes. You know, once you're used to it and you know how to get the best out of it, as soon as you start really gunning the throttle, it's got some power. Great fun, absolutely great fun. As you can see, it can move when you want it to. It really can. So, one of the other ways, aside from the kind of mid-range power delivery, that they're making this more accessible is the throttle. They've done something with the throttle here, where obviously it's responsible, it's using ride-by-wire technology, but it feels like there's a very slight delay between when you start twisting it and it starts giving full power, and I think that's aimed to just make it a little bit more manageable. So I feel like it'd be very difficult to get yourself in trouble on this bike by accident. I mean, if you're looking to get in trouble on purpose, this bike can take you to jail if you want, but it's certainly got all the power you need for UK road riding. But it's just a little bit more refined, very user-friendly, like I keep saying. So another thing this bike is packed full of, which is perhaps a little bit unique for this budget, certainly, it's full of technology. For a start, we've got a couple of different rider modes. We've got road mode and rain mode. And I think that also, aside from just being good when the good old British weather strikes, you can set it to rain mode and it just reduces the power a little bit. It's also got traction control, and it's separately assigned to the different modes, so you get a little bit more stronger TC on the rain mode. But that is actually switchable, so you can turn it off altogether if you so fancy. If you feel like you don't want these manufacturer riding aids interfering, switch them off. ABS is always on, but traction control is switchable. It just means that, again, if this is your first big bike, your second big bike, if you're a little bit nervous about, the 80 horsepower on it, you can just switch it in rain mode and get used to it. And then, as your confidence grows, switch it back into the road mode and just be gentle with it. If you're gentle with this bike, it reminds me a bit of the old 600 Super Sports in that regard. If you're gentle with the throttle, you can have a very relaxed, very gentle ride. But then if you gun it, it goes. So the power is waiting for you when you're ready for it. So it's a real all-rounder, and I think it's going to suit a lot of different people. But yeah, speaking of technology, we've got a 6-speed gearbox, and it has a slip and assist clutch as standard built in, which is lovely. I do love a slipper clutch. If you're unsure what that does, it basically smooths out the rev ranges as you do a downshift, so it just makes it's a quality of life thing. It just makes riding that little bit easier. And I will say it's becoming more and more common these days, and I'm so used to it now that when I find myself on a bike that doesn't have it, I do miss it. So going back to the gears, one thing I do notice, the first few gears are quite short. The first 1 to 3, so it's quite easy to hit the rev limiter on them. You're kind of expecting it to go on a bit longer, but suddenly it's run out. Obviously that's not a criticism, it's just something I'm finding riding it, and if you owned one, you'd soon get used to it. Once you kind of hit 4th gear, 5th gear, that completely evens out. You get much longer gears again. And due to the lovely generous spread of torque on this thing, it's got quite a bit of pull even in the tall gears. I've found that if you're just relaxing, maybe you're in a 30 zone or something, in 5th gear, trying to improve that MPG, when you then come out on the other side and hit national speed limit again, if you don't want to, if you fancy just being nice and relaxed, it's got enough pull in that 5th gear to get you straight back up to speed pretty fast. So the suspension. Up front we've got a Showa 41mm upside down fork. It's non-adjustable, but that's fine. It's a 7 grand bike, and the suspension feels fantastic, to be honest with you. On the rear, it's another Showa rear monoshock. This one's preload adjustable, so if you want to get a pillion on the back, might be able to help out with that. But I will say, if you've seen the back end of this bike, it's got this lovely sort of sharp aesthetic design on it. Now that does mean that the second seat is pretty small, so it's absolutely fine if you want to take a pillion for small journeys. But if you're thinking about going on tour with someone on the back, especially if you want to get some luggage on there as well, it's probably not going to happen. But it's not really that kind of bike, but it's such an all-rounder. I just thought it's worth mentioning, just in case that was something you were thinking about doing. But going back to the suspension, it's relatively firm. which I do like. I much prefer a firm suspension to, you know, a kind of a soft, wallowy suspension. And everything has just felt great on it. The only minor issues, and again, it's not really a criticism, sometimes when we're on one of these back roads, especially here, we're in Norfolk, some lumpy, bumpy roads about. If you hit like a particularly big bump or a pothole or something, you feel it. You definitely feel it. But you know, I've racked up a fair few hours in the saddle now, and that's only really happened one time. You know, most of the time you can see these kind of things coming and just avoid them. So the brakes, we've got Nissin brakes in front and the back. On the front, we've got two 310mm discs, and on the rear, this is one 255mm disc. We've got two piston calipers on the front and a single piston on the rear. So most of the stopping power is on the front brake. Again, that's the way we like it. And I will say that the brakes are excellent, really confidence inspiring. You know, as soon as you start squeezing that brake, you really feel the stopping power. You know, you don't have any doubt you're going to stop in plenty of time. So yeah, I'm very impressed by these brakes actually. Woohoo! So let's talk about the general ergonomics. 805mm seat. I'm 5'10". I can flat foot this bike no problem. I've already said it's really comfy. This is one comfortable bike. Seat feels lovely. Got nice wide bars. The seating position's very upright, so you do get smacked in the chest with the wind a little bit at speed, but it's manageable. But it does mean the all-round comfort level is great. The levers are lovely and light. You've got this plenty of leg room, very comfortable position. I can ride this all day and be ready for more. You know, you don't get fatigued, you don't get tired. It's really nice. And another thing worth noting is it's very slender, especially for a bike of this size. We do have a 14-litre tank, which is perfectly fine. But it's got minor leg cutouts on the side of it, but the whole bike just feels very light, very nimble, nice and thin. I mean, it only weighs 189 kilos, and that's with a full tank. So, really agile. You feel like you've got a lot of control over the bike. So let's talk about the dash. Similar to the XSR, actually. It's got one of these really cool, kind of modern retro vibes going on here. So it's got like a circular dash, so it's made to look like a traditional dash, but of course it's fully digital. It's got a nice big full color TF screen on it, all the information you need, lovely and large. I like this dash a lot. If I had one minor niggle, I would say, again, similar to the XSR, it just feels like it's a little bit out of the way maybe. I like to be able to just glance down, see everything I need, but this one it feels like I need to actually move my head and look down at it, which again, it's a minor niggle, it's fine, but I would like to be just perhaps a little bit more prominent. But you've got all the information there, your odometer, trip meters, MPG, so it's got a fuel gauge. Everything you need is there. The switch gear is great on this. It's all on the left hand side. Got a menu button and then a series of arrow keys, so you can cycle through everything you need. You can change the display, you can get in and adjust the rider modes, switch off the traction control. But it's also got a mode button, a separate mode button, so if you don't want to be going into the menu, you can just press this mode button to switch between rain and road modes, so that is very handy. It just feels like they thought about everything and really making it as user-friendly and easy to use as possible. So again, although this might be a little bit more refined than something like an MT-07 perhaps, you know, it doesn't feel like quite the hooligan, it can hoon it around when you want to, and it kind of brings it out of you. It's very fun cranking the throttle and flying. Really high fun factor on this bike. In fact, it's just such an all-rounder. You can give it some, really enjoy yourself, or you can just cruise and have a leisurely time in the countryside. It's got the best of all worlds. This would be a fantastic commuter, no doubt about that. In terms of MPG, it's around 50 to 60, but that does depend on the way you're going to ride it. Like I've said, it does like to be thrashed a bit, this bike. So whether you'll actually manage the 50 or 60 mpg is another question. Obviously, if you're on your commute and you're riding nice and economical, no problem. But if you're thacking it around the countryside, maybe not so much. So obviously Triumph's got a lot of experience in the naked category. The Street Triple was the absolute king of the middleweights for a really long time. It's only sort of in the last 6 years or so that it started to be challenged by a lot of very competitive rivals, and obviously that experience has helped Triumph design this bike to be as outstanding as possible. I really feel like for £7,000 you will not find a more refined and polished bike than this anywhere. So like I said, it's built to last. Obviously it's a 2021 bike, so reliability wise we don't know exactly how it's going to perform, but it's Triumph. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't extremely reliable. It's even got a 10,000 mile service interval on it, so that's how confident they are in this thing, how smooth it runs. This is a bike that, again, not just built to last, but it will go such a long way if you're a new rider. You're never going to get bored of this bike. It's really easy to manage, and as you get more confident, the power is just there waiting for you. And even when you are experienced, this has got everything you need for UK roads. Everything you need for UK roads.
Just going to check my audio. Test, 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 test. Test, test, test. Hello ladies and gentlemen, we're still recording. Hello Jakey. Triumph Trident 660.
Indeed. What a bike. What a bike.
Just phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. I can't really think of anything wrong with it. I'm serious. I think Triumph have really knocked out the park on this. Everything they've set out to achieve with this bike, they've achieved, and they've achieved it very well indeed.
Yeah. I think it's one of those ones that it's as much of an animal as you want it to be.
Exactly.
And I don't know how Triumph have been able to do it so bloody well, because when I went out for it, you said the throttle is just everything you want it to be. It's nice to start off with for people who are newbies, but if you want it to be an animal and you pull it back, it will go.
Exactly right. Because, you know, Triumph are kind of marketing this as their entry-level bike.
Which is mad.
Yeah.
But I mean, can see why.
You know, it's an 80 horsepower bike, so this is no joke, right? It's got some firepower. But they've tuned it, they've developed it in such a way to make it really easy to ride. And the fact that the power delivery really comes kind of in the mid-ranges. So it's not going to pull your arms off straight away unless you want it to.
Yeah.
Also, that throttle action, they've obviously muted it slightly, right? So when you first start twisting...
It's nice and calm.
Yeah, it's nice and calm. You first start twisting and not really much happens. And it's about when you get halfway, that's where it starts coming. And as a result, it's going to be great for beginners, because it's going to be hard to get in trouble. It's really easy manageable.
Yeah.
But if you crank that throttle, it flies.
That triple wants to go.
Yeah, the power is there. So, you know, it really is going to suit pretty much everyone.
And the great thing about it, like you say, it's 80 horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
It can be restricted for A2 license holders as well.
Yep, you can get... absolutely, you can get an A2 kit on it.
You get your A2 license, you have it for a couple of years, restricted.
Yeah.
You then take that restriction off,
and you've got a fantastic
you've got 80
bike.
horsepower Trident, which will go as well as most of the other 700s about.
Easy,
Yeah.
easy. Once you get used to it and you start enjoying yourself, it kind of wants to bring that hooligan out of you. You know, you get a real buzz out of.
And it's so easy to feel comfortable and then look at the speed and go, oh.
Yes, exactly.
It feels slower than you're actually going because it's just works so nicely, I find.
Absolutely, I agree 100% there. You can sometimes just feel like you're cruising, look down at the dash, and whoops.
Yeah.
Slow it down a bit, slow it down a bit.
But I mean, so the engine, the triple, I say 80 horsepower, is it 60 odd?
64 Newton meters of torque, yep.
Which is all very respectable numbers. And the price on this
£7,395.
is just outstanding.
It's ridiculous.
So we know it's near the Yamaha MT's a little bit cheaper, the MT-07.
A smidgen, but to be honest with you, there's going to be a new MT-07 coming very soon.
Yeah.
So we'll see how Yamaha answer back to this.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting it to be a very nice bike, the MT-07 too. But right now, I think this Triumph is going to take some serious beating.
Yeah, it's just got it all, and it's
full
seamless.
LED lights. I've seen people are a bit torn over the looks of this bike. I've seen people who like it, people who don't like it. Me personally, I love it. I think it looks great.
I think it's a great looking. I think it's great. I really do. I think it's got it's really muscular. The tank looks really muscular.
From the side, it certainly does.
The engine, I know
it's relatively narrow. When you look at it from this angle, look at it straight on. That is quite a narrow tank for the size of this bike. But when you see it from the side,
it looks really impressive.
It looks huge. It looks like an absolute beast.
So it's got this ultra modern style to it, with that hint of heritage.
And that tail.
And the tail. And the tail tidy as well. So all of that looks quite modern. But then we go to like the front, and there's little aspects like we've got a circular headlight, which is still very traditional. LED.
Yeah.
It's all LED.
Yeah.
And then we've got the circular dash as well, which is still quite a heritage feeling to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's all LCD, isn't it?
It's LCD with a full colour TFT screen at the bottom.
Which is mad.
Which is huge as well, by the way.
And it's got
all
app
your info is
integration
right
as well,
there.
isn't it?
Sorry?
It's got app integration, hasn't it?
Yep. You can download the Triumph app, and you can actually get sat-nav on the screen then with the Triumph app.
Nice.
Yeah.
As standard.
That comes as standard, the multimedia, but you do need the app.
Okay, yeah.
So, it's got a slipper clutch, or a slip and assist clutch.
Yeah.
It just makes it a doddle to ride. One more thing, actually. The exhaust. I've got to talk about this.
As a stock exhaust?
This is a stock Euro 5 exhaust, and obviously we're trying to save the planet. So it's wrong to talk about fashion. But often you look at these Euro 5 exhausts and they're huge, they're ugly, and somehow Triumph have managed to make it look pretty darn good. They've got this underslung exhaust, it's very neat and tidy.
It goes with the whole muscle aesthetics of it.
It does. It's a really great stock exhaust, and if you can hear this, that triple engine, if you guys can hear this, stock exhaust, guys.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely
fantastic. See, normally
fantastic.
when you buy a bike, you think one of the first thing you're going to do is change the exhaust.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to happen, I don't think.
Absolutely. Most of the time you get on a bike, you think, right, first thing I'm going to do, change the pipe.
Yeah.
You can get away with this one.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to mention Lexham Insurance, who power BikeMatters and basically make it possible for us to make these videos. So if you're in the UK and you've got a moped, a scooter, a motorcycle, they are two-wheel insurance specialists, and popping up on screen right about now, you can click this button, go straight to the quote page, get a quotation on your bike or scooter, and it'll automatically deduct £20 from the price. So you can get a great insurance quote, we can keep making quality content for you guys, everyone's a winner. Yeah guys, we're waiting for these temporary traffic lights. It rained yesterday and there's been agricultural vehicles all over the place. That's the downside of being in beautiful Norfolk. So we've got to be a bit careful because there is muck all over these roads. So we're taking it steady. As much as this bike wants to be spanked, I've got to resist the urge. And speaking of devil, tractor rolls up behind us. Hello, mate. That V-twin, don't know if you guys heard that. Spicy. Speaking of the rain, this bike's actually going to be pretty darn good in the rain, I reckon. Not only does it have an actual rain mode, which just remaps the throttle a bit, gives it a little bit less power, it also increases the level of traction control. And you might have seen when we were stopped taking a look at this bike, those Michelin tyres with their big deep grooves. You know, we're in the UK and the weather is not always great. If you're going to be riding this bike for a long period of time, especially if you're commuting, you're going to be riding it in the rain at some point, and this bike is well equipped to deal with that. So the Triumph Trident, I really think this is a great bike for so many different people. It's a true all-rounder. It's relatively inexpensive, £7,395, plenty of power, 80 horsepower, you know, but it's manageable power. It's all very user-friendly. You know, Triumph have done the best they can to make sure that, you know, if you're not as familiar with riding motorcycles, you can still jump on this and have a good time, take it easy, and the bike will ride easy. If you want to have some fun, you can crank it and it'll fly. It'll commute, it'll have a ton of fun if you want to take this out in the countryside. It's ridiculously comfy. You could tour, but without a pillion. Pillions can go on this bike, absolutely, but with that sharp tail end, the small rear seat, probably short journeys only for the pillions. It's just such a joy to ride. It's hard to find any faults with this bike whatsoever. It sets out and achieves exactly what it wants to do, and that is a really easy to ride, really easy to manage bike that's still high on fun factor. Got all the performance you need for UK roads. Well, what do you guys think about the Trident? Let me know in the comments. Do you think this is the new king of the budget middleweights, or do you prefer one of the others out there? Let us know. I gotta say, for my money, it doesn't get much better than this. This is one fantastic motorcycle. And if you enjoyed this video, if you found it at all helpful, do us a big favour, hit that thumbs up button. We've got plenty more content on the channel and plenty more content on the way, so hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you'll never miss another video. Cheers guys, I'll catch you in the next one.